Oh boy, I feel like shadowboxing in my room. Shh, 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 shh. Yeah, I'm ready. Give it to me, man. Feed me more. Let's dive into it. Because today, we are talking about the Montreal Canadiens. And the idea that the very next 9-figure player on the team is already on the squad. How he could already be in a position to command as much as it is that he wants. Because today, we're going over onto an article by Jean-Nicolas Blanchet that talks about the latest in regards to Lane Hutson, the first Canadian to reach $100 million. This article goes out there and says, I'm going to leave a link in the description. It's a really interesting read. We're going to read it here, of course, too. But to open things up, before we expand on what it is that Blanchet writes about here in regards to Hutson potentially being the next Scrooge McDuck, I wanted to go over the commentary made by Lane Hutson after he had won the Calder Trophy just 2 days ago. Because not only was there a really big celebration and people were going out there and giving the guy his praises, it was a really big, fun time in Montreal to see Ivan Demidov win the KHL Rookie of the Year and Lane Hutson win the NHL Rookie of the Year. But there were some comments made by Hutson on, where was this? Was it BPM? I think it was BPM, asked to him by Max Lalonde. There was a post made here by the BPM Sports Talk crew. Will Lane Hutson sign a long-term deal with the Canadiens of Montreal? And Hutson, with a very big smile on his face, replies, we'll see, but I love Montreal. That, of course, doesn't reveal anything. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it does give a lot of hope for Canadiens fans that want to see Hutson dive down the route of cementing himself in this franchise's long-term future. Hutson, right now, is a measly 21 years old. He's very young. He has a lot of potential to grow into. He has a lot more points to score, and he probably has a lot more trophies to go out there and win, too. There is nothing stopping Lane Hutson from hockey prosperity and having a name that will stand the test of time than Lane Hutson himself. And with him, just kind of saying, yeah, we'll see if I sign a long-term deal, but I do love it here in Montreal after all. Obviously, there are going to be some fans replying, speculating, asking, and getting the conversation going as to Lane Hutson and his potential next deal. I say potential next deal. Yeah, he's got 1 year left at $950,000, but he is eligible for an extension come July 1st. Which is why we go back over onto Jean-Nicolas Blanchet's post on TVAsports.ca. Because the article writes at the beginning here, for the first time in its history, the Habs could pay $100 million to a player. It's amazing how much Lane Hutson shuts so many people down. Some people thought that he wouldn't be good in the NCAA. Wrong. 61 players were chosen over him in the draft because he's not that big. He's been better than all of them so far. Many thought he'd need a year in the AHL to adjust to pro hockey. Wrong. Some people didn't think he'd be able to lead the power play in his rookie year. Wrong. Many thought he would slow down in the second half of the season due to fatigue and his lack of experience. Wrong. Many were worried that Hutson would disappear in the playoffs with the physical play he has. Wrong. Some thought Dustin Wolf would overpower Lane Hutson for the Calder. It wasn't even close. Blanchet then writes here, Hutson never ceases to amaze. And if I told you he could make $100 million on his next contract, I'm starting to think we shouldn't be surprised. And I think there's already a good chance he'll sign the most lucrative deal in Canadiens history, which is currently held by Carey Price, who had that $84 million contract. Hutson's rookie contract will expire at the end of next season. However, the Habs will be able to sign him to a new contract of up to 8 years as early as July 1st. Now, $100 million. Let's just do the math on that real quick. 100 divided by 8 is $12.5 million a year. And for the longest time in the late 2010s and then especially into the 2020s with the pandemic, for the longest time, $12.5 million a year was always seen as the cap. Connor McDavid is making that. Sure, there were some guys that could have made more. John Tavares could have made 13 in San Jose when he was a free agent all those years ago, but he had signed in Toronto for 11. But then you could also say that Connor McDavid was in a spot where he didn't really get the most money he could have had either, which put the Oilers in a good spot because they were able to get Draisaitl signed, etc., etc. There's a lot of good to go around with this team. But for the longest time, 12.5 was the cap. Until after the pandemic started to go away, we started to see, okay, here's Nathan MacKinnon, he'll make 12.6. And then here's Austin Matthews, he'll get up there into the 13s. And then we saw Leon Draisaitl, who got even further up there. He's got 14. And now we're in a spot where, as the cap is projected to rising to, let's say, $100+ million over the next few years, we are starting to see guys that will be very, very expensive. And hey, I'm thinking about it like this. Mikko Rantanen just signed for $12 million a year in Dallas. Would you say that based off of the magnitude of importance and in terms of the value to the team, would it not be reasonable to argue that Lane Hutson is a more valuable player to Montreal than Mikko Rantanen is to Dallas? Yeah, Rantanen will get 100 points a year pretty much. He's very good, very skilled. Maybe he had a little bit less money because of what happened in Carolina this previous year, but he's fantastic. The point is, though, Lane Hutson does things that no other defenseman not named Quinn, Cale, or potentially even Adam can do at the National Hockey League level. Which is why this article by Blanchet goes out there and says that Lane Hutson could or would become the 8th player in NHL history to earn a contract over $100 million in total. That would represent $12.5 million over 8 years, for a total of $137 million in Canadian currency. Beyond the fact that we can say that he'll be able to swim in a pool full of money like Scrooge McDuck, we must ask ourselves that it is utopian to believe that he could touch such a jackpot. The most common comparison is the Wild's brilliant young D-man Brock Faber. He signed his contract a year ago and will earn $8.5 million over 8 years. Faber was coming off of a 47-point rookie season. He had 29 points this season. Hutson had 66 points in his rookie year and led the Canadiens in 5 playoff games. With Hutson, we're somewhere else. We're a year later. We know the salary cap will increase significantly. The Habs have plenty of space available. And Hutson is already a favorite in Montreal. He's part of tomorrow's core. He's a gem to market in a market like ours. He is the perfect teammate from what we hear, and he is easy to love. Now, the article goes into an interesting little sidetrack here, talking about Quinn Hughes and how Hutson's profile is very similar to Hughes, but that the Canucks also benefited in getting Hughes to a contract during the lowered pandemic prices, so it's not really all too relevant to look at that now, and I can agree with that. Quinn Hughes is making $7.8 million a year. You know how many players are making more money AAV-wise than Quinn Hughes heading into next season? 70. And some of these guys are nowhere near the level of skill or talent that we have seen out of Quinn. I mean, Thomas Chabot, Josh Norris, Kevin Fiala's making more than Quinn Hughes. Shea Weber's making more than Quinn Hughes, although, okay, extenuating circumstances, I get it. Logan Couture's making more than Quinn Hughes. Tomas Hertl's making more than Quinn Hughes. Owen Power. This guy's salivating at the rest of the league. But Lane Hutson, he's not in that same spot that Quinn Hughes is in. Hutson is in all the right spots to fully take advantage of the way the league has shaped up, and potentially sign himself a very extraordinary deal too. Is $12.5 million too much for you? That's the number this article goes out there and proposes. Do you agree with this idea? Do you think it's a little bit too out to lunch? Let me know in the comments all your opinions about Lane Hutson potentially getting $12.5 million a year. Do you agree or disagree with this piece here? And what are your thoughts to the way that Hutson discussed his potential contract extension being long-term? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.